The protagonist, Lily Lee, always cherished cute, beautiful, and lovely things, aspiring to live like a princess from a fairy tale. However, in reality, she considered herself an average person with no particular talents. Lily worked as a children's clothing designer, enjoying the delightful task of transforming kids into princesses. Unfortunately, her life was cut short at the age of 30 due to overworking. Her lifeless body was discovered in the nap room at her office. Had she known this would happen, she wouldn't have starved herself just for the sake of staying thin. When she opened her eyes, she had turned into the beautiful, alluring, and cruel villainess Abigail Friedkin, stepmother of Snow White. And thus the story began. Abigail looked at Blanche in disbelief, wondering how in the world a creature like her could even exist. Her skin's as radiant as freshly fallen snow, and she has the face of a doll. She has black hair as soft as silk and big, deep blue eyes. Abigail, with a creepy smile, contemplates how Blanche's presence brings her joy, expressing a desire for Blanche to wear the clothes she designs. Blanche serves as her muse, reigniting Abigail's passion for creating new designs despite the fact that overworking led to her demise. Blanche, visibly frightened by Abigail's creepy smile, trembled and questioned whether she had made a mistake. Abigail, with a reassuring tone, clarified that there was no wrongdoing and explained the invitation was simply for a shared tea. She contemplated the repercussions of her smile, realizing its unsettling effect on others. Despite her attractive appearance, she acknowledged the discomfort it caused. Reflecting on Abigail's memories, she surmised that Blanche's fear extended beyond just Abigail's unsettling smile. Lily Lee observed that Abigail was excessively obsessed with beauty, driving away or tormenting all the pretty girls in the palace. Princess Blanche suffered from Abigail's harassment like many others. The fact that Abigail had even risen from the dead made her terrifying. Lily recognized she couldn't solely worry about Blanche. As per the fairy tale, her own ending wouldn't be favorable unless she took action. Abigail stared at Blanche, pondering over what exactly happened. She recalled the tale of Blanche wearing hot iron heels and dancing until her demise. Realizing that her fate depended on Blanche, Abigail acknowledged the importance of improving their relationship as her primary mission. Abigail, addressing Princess Blanche, witnesses Blanche's startled and fearful expression. Blanche, in a timid and apologetic tone, expresses regret for her past actions and seeks forgiveness. Abigail responds by acknowledging her own regrets after returning from the dead, emphasizing that although she can't alter the past, she still wanted to apologize. Blanche, filled with fear, clenches in response. Abigail contemplated the situation, acknowledging the cold appearance she bore as a villainess. However, she couldn't comprehend why someone as beautiful as herself would feel jealousy toward a mere child. With a sigh, Abigail expressed her perplexity. Abigail apologized for startling Blanche and encouraged her to go and rest in her room. Blanche, feeling timid, responded with a hesitant acknowledgement. She stood up and performed a curtsy, wishing Abigail a good afternoon. Blanche starts to move away, but then she collides with her father, Sabrian Friedkin, wobbling and falling with a thud. Abigail, shocked, screams out Blanche's name and rushes to her side. Concerned, she questions Blanche about her well-being and whether she sustained any injuries. Blanche reassures Abigail that she's all right despite the pain, and Abigail, still worried, asks if Blanche sprained her wrist during the fall. Blanche, in disbelief, insists that she is indeed okay. Sabrian instructs Blanche to be more careful and promises to summon the palace physician for her. He then mentions having matters to discuss with the queen and urges Blanche to leave. After Blanche leaves, Abigail and Sabrian begin conversing with each other. Abigail questions Sabrian's apparent lack of concern, suggesting that showing a little care towards his injured daughter shouldn't be difficult. Sabrian, sipping his tea, dismisses Abigail's remarks, questioning her sudden interest in Blanche's well-being. Abigail acknowledges to herself that she hasn't always been the most caring mother, but she believes she has changed since returning to life. Sabrian responds sarcastically to her statement. In a fit of rage, Abigail contemplates how she wishes she could simply slap him. Even though Sabrian is a wise and powerful king with good looks, she acknowledges that the blood flowing through his veins is as cold as a frozen river in the dead of winter. She reflects on how his marriage to Abigail served merely as a contract between two kingdoms. Sabrian left Abigail on her own during the reception, excusing himself due to tiredness. On their first night together, Sabrian assured Abigail, "Abigail, I will never lay a single finger on you, ever." After uttering those words, he went to sleep alone. Abigail, the most beautiful flower of the Cronenberg kingdom, found herself in a unique situation. Despite every man desiring to capture her heart, Sabrian was the only person to ever turn her down. Consequently, her bruised ego transformed into an obsession toward him. In a flashback, Abigail shouted and pleaded with Sabrian, engaging in a tumultuous exchange. She questioned him, demanding to know what he wanted her to do. Sabrian remained unfazed and instructed her not to do anything, not to say anything, and not even to come near him. He insisted that she should live as though she didn't exist, which was the only thing he asked of her. Upon hearing this, tears began to flow from Abigail's eyes. Possessed by Abigail's thoughts, she recollects the day of her death. She reflects on the first words Sabrian uttered upon her soul switching with Abigail's while she lay in the coffin. Sabrian's words haunt her. "I hope we never cross paths again in our next lives." Fuming with resentment, she condemns him as a horrible bastard. Despite their loveless contractual marriage and Abigail's past as a villainess, she blames Sabrian as the root cause of the tragedy. She scowls with bitterness at the realization. Sabrian noticed Abigail's upset expression and inquired if something was wrong. Angrily, Abigail excused herself, attributing her agitation to the hot tea. In her thoughts, Abigail seethed with rage, labeling Sabrian as an evil son of. Abigail wondered aloud, addressing Sabrian, questioning the reason for his visit. Sabrian explained that he came to discuss matters regarding her death. He informed her that the cause of her demise was under investigation, but it was suspected that she ingested a type of poison that disappears without leaving a trace. Puzzled, Abigail contemplated the implications of poison, pondering whether her death was indeed a murder. Sabrian expressed uncertainty, explaining that they couldn't conduct an autopsy and emphasized the lack of evidence. Abigail, in a state of shock and rage, contemplated his words. She couldn't fathom his suggestion of an autopsy, wondering if he considered their situation akin to a thriller movie. Sabrian inquired if Abigail still couldn't recall events before her death. Abigail confirmed her lack of memory. Sabrian then asked if she remembered the incident 6 months ago when she collapsed, attempting to poison herself. He reminded her that she later confessed to doing it to get his attention. Abigail affirmed her recollection of the past event. Sabrian questioned if her recent actions mirrored those of the past. Startled, Abigail denied any suicidal intentions. Possessed by Abigail's thoughts, she contemplated how Abigail was capable of such actions. Abigail was the type to feign illness, jump into a lake, or even drink poison for attention. She pondered why she, as the possessed entity, was bearing the consequences of Abigail's actions. Abigail vehemently denied any suicidal intentions, emphasizing that it wasn't the case this time. She questioned the absurdity of someone taking their own life for attention, especially when it was evident that Sabrian would suspect her regardless. Abigail wondered why she would contemplate such actions in the first place. Sabrian sighed, prompting Abigail to wonder if her denial was convincing. Sabrian asserted that regardless of her actions, she wouldn't attain what she desired from him and urged her to cease her futile games. Confused, Abigail questioned his statement, pondering its meaning. Abigail cleared her throat, acknowledging why Sabrian would express such sentiments given her past actions. However, she stated that she no longer cared for his attention. Sabrian, flustered, questioned the sudden change in her attitude. Abigail expressed her realization that her efforts to earn affection from Sabrian were futile, only resulting in pity. She declared her disinterest in such sentiments and proposed something to Sabrian after reflecting on her past actions. Sabrian, sweating nervously, inquired about her proposal. With a grin, Abigail responded by suggesting they sleep in separate rooms from that point forward. Sabrian appeared surprised by the suggestion of separate rooms. Abigail sought his opinion on the matter. In her thoughts, Abigail contemplated the burden of sharing a bed with a stranger every night and the anxiety-induced sleep paralysis she experienced. She believed that separate rooms were necessary for them to coexist peacefully. Urging Sabrian to agree, she hoped for his consent. Sabrian agreed, stating that he would arrange for a separate room for Abigail soon. Upon hearing this, Abigail became excited. Abigail mentioned that she assumed Sabrian accepted her proposal. Then she requested another favor from him. Sabrian, feeling uneasy, asked what it was this time. Abigail expressed that she wouldn't ask him to fulfill the role of a husband anymore, but urged him to fulfill his role as a father at the very least. That was all she asked. Sabrian questioned the notion of his role as a father. Abigail emphasized that since he showed no interest in producing heirs, he should cherish their one and only child and love her more. Sabrian acknowledged her point, agreeing that she was his child. Abigail started to express agreement, but Sabrian interrupted, asserting that since the child was his, he would do as he pleased with her. Shocked, Abigail questioned his claim of ownership. Abigail pondered Sabrian's perspective, wondering if he considered their child a mere possession. She found his attitude unbelievable. Fuming with anger, she slammed her hand down, reminding Sabrian of her identity as Abigail Friedrin, sharing the same Fredkin name as Blanche and Sabrian himself. Consequently, she believed she was entitled to express her views on parenting matters. Abigail expressed her request for Sabrian to show Princess Blanche more affection and to cherish her dearly, which was the only thing she asked of him. She curtsied and then began to leave, but before reaching the door, she turned back to Sabrian. She suggested that it would be best for them to start using separate rooms starting that day. Then the maids conversed among themselves. One maid asked if they heard correctly about the queen and king sleeping in separate rooms. Another maid confirmed, mentioning that it was Her Majesty who suggested the idea. Norma sighed, expressing her curiosity about what the Queen might be planning this time. When asked for clarification, Norma wondered if the Queen and King were using separate rooms because they didn't get along. This made the other maid call out to Norma in surprise. Norma, addressing Clara, cautions her about how things work in the palace. She advises Clara not to be naive when dealing with Her Majesty, explaining that the Queen takes out her anger on the maids when upset. Norma emphasizes the strict dress code, suggesting that Clara remove her earrings. Clara promptly complies. Norma, in her thoughts, wonders how long Clara will last in this environment. The urgency is then conveyed as Norma instructs Clara that Her Majesty is waiting, and Clara responds affirmatively. Norma and Clara approach Abigail. Abigail confirmed that she had indeed called for them and expressed a request. Anxiously, Norma wondered if Abigail would vent her anger on them again. Norma then responded affirmatively to Abigail's inquiry. Abigail, with an unintentionally creepy smile, presented 2 slippers and asked which would best suit Princess Blanche. Norma felt surprised by the mention of slippers, wondering if the Queen intended to gift them to Princess Blanche, perhaps with a harmful item concealed within. She hesitated, unsure of how to respond. Nervously, she began to express her opinion, but was interrupted by Clara, who smiled and suggested that Princess Blanche would look lovely in both pairs of slippers. Shocked, Norma realized the potential consequences of Clara's response, fearing they would incur Her Majesty's wrath. Clara expressed her agreement with Abigail's sentiment. Abigail admitted having difficulty deciding because she believed both slippers would suit Princess Blanche. Clara proposed the idea of giving her both pairs, believing it would make the princess happy. Abigail questioned whether Princess Blanche might feel uneasy receiving such a substantial gift, but Clara reassured her. Norma, in disbelief, pondered whether Abigail truly summoned them to help choose a gift for the princess. Abigail turned towards Norma, noticing her serious expression. Abigail wondered if Norma was having trouble making up her mind. Norma quickly responded, saying it wasn't about indecision, but rather she believed Princess Blanche would be very happy. Blanche stood by the window, gazing outside at the moon, lost in deep thought. Clara worked happily, humming a song while doing her tasks. Observing this, another maid remarked on Clara's cheerful demeanor. Clara responded, asking if she appeared more elegant. The maid agreed, suggesting she seemed radiant. Clara acknowledged the observation, and the maid concurred with her sentiment. Clara expressed excitement about receiving permission from Her Majesty to dress as she pleased. She twirled while sharing that she had promptly bought herself a new dress. Clara also mentioned the sapphire earrings, stating that Abigail wanted to get rid of them since she already had too many and generously offered them to the maids. Clara expressed relief and delight, sharing that she was initially worried due to negative rumors about Her Majesty. Another maid, feeling anxious, admitted receiving a brooch from Her Majesty but hesitated to accept it. Clara reassured her, saying it was all right since Her Majesty gave it to her directly. Norma pondered, considering how the Queen appeared like a completely different person. Abigail expressed her desire to apologize to Norma, acknowledging the suffering she endured because of her. Norma wondered if it was truly possible for someone to change so drastically in such a short time. Abigail inquired from Clara if Princess Blanche was scheduled for fittings for her new dresses that day. Clara confirmed it. Abigail thought eagerly about Blanche's new dresses, anticipating how they would look on her. She expressed her excitement at the thought of making Blanche try on different dresses and losing herself in her cuteness. However, Abigail speculated that Blanche might not appreciate her presence and could get scared. Clara assured Abigail that there wouldn't be any problem and mentioned that Her Majesty even prepared a gift for Princess Blanche. Abigail acknowledged Clara's point with enthusiasm and requested Clara's assistance in getting prepared. Clara readily agreed to help Her Majesty. Sabrian was deep in thought at the office when a man entered. The man expressed concern about Sabrian's well-being and offered to return later if necessary. Sabrian reassured him, mentioning that he had slept well since getting married and felt great. The man inquired if something was bothering Sabrian, to which Sabrian responded that he was dealing with something he hadn't experienced before. Perplexed, the man sought clarification from Sabrian. Sabrian stood up from his seat and addressed Millard. Millard acknowledged His Majesty's call. Sabrian instructed Millard to closely monitor the Queen's movements and report them back to him. Millard agreed to comply with His Majesty's request. Abigail secretly watches Blanche in the dressing room, admiring her cuteness and contemplating the idea of making her wear the clothes she designed. Abigail imagines the joy it would bring her and entertains the thought of using her role as Blanche's mother to influence her fashion choices. Clara expresses impatience, wondering how long they have to wait outside. Meanwhile, Abigail thinks to herself, admitting her infatuation with no shame, expressing her fondness for Blanche with laughter. In the dressing room, a man shows a dress to Madame Garamy, Blanche's tutor and nanny, seeking her opinion. Madame Garamy responds, asking to see the other dresses. Upon witnessing this, Abigail thinks to herself, expressing surprise and frustration at the situation, realizing the focus should be on choosing clothes for Blanche, not for Madame Guérémy. Abigail expresses her concern, pointing out that the dresses presented are designed for adults. She emphasizes the importance of considering the differences between clothing for children and adults, noting the sensitivity of children's skin and their growing bodies. Abigail reflects on historical practices where children were given scaled-down versions of adult clothes without considering these factors. Abigail reflects on the historical practice of making children wear high heels and corsets, which she finds astonishing. She realizes that what she's witnessing now aligns with what she had only read about in history books. Despite her surprise, she acknowledges the need to remain calm in the situation. Abigail decides to prioritize the design aspect, considering it as a perfect opportunity to discover Blanche's preferences. She expresses her commitment to creating comfortable clothes for Blanche, aiming to cater to her dear daughter's taste. A man shows a dress, prompting excitement from Blanche upon seeing it. Abigail, observing Blanche's reaction, thinks to herself that Blanche seems to like it. However, Jeremy intervenes, suggesting they see a different design instead. A man shows a flashy dress, and Jeremy expresses admiration. Blanche is shocked and visibly surprised. Jeremy, addressing the man, enthusiastically declares that this particular dress is perfect. Abigail reacts with astonishment, questioning if Jeremy is serious. Blanche, with a hesitant voice, addresses Madame Guérémy. Jeremy responds with a grin, inquiring about Blanche's concern. Blanche, still feeling uneasy, quickly dismisses her initial inquiry, indicating it was nothing. The man presents another dress, mentioning its popularity among noblewomen in neighboring countries and its anticipated trend in the Nurgan kingdom soon. Blanche, upon seeing the dress, feels delighted, expressing her joy inwardly. Abigail observes Blanche's reaction, reassured by her evident liking for the dress, envisioning it would suit her dear Blanche perfectly. However, Jeremy dismisses the suggested dress, expressing her opinion that it wouldn't suit her highness. Blanche appears disheartened by this decision. The man acknowledges Jeremy's preference and agrees to tailor the previously chosen dress to fit the princess's size promptly. Frustrated and distressed, Abigail's thoughts express her dismay at the rejection of the pink dress Blanche liked. She urges them to consider Blanche's feelings and seems unable to tolerate the situation any longer. Abigail bursts into the dressing room, surprising Blanche. Jeremy, startled by Abigail's sudden entrance, greets her respectfully. Blanche, taken aback, offers a nervous curtsy in greeting to Abigail. Abigail, with a hint of concern in her voice, inquires about the progress of selecting new dresses for the princess this spring. Jeremy responds, informing her that they have just finalized the order. Abigail carefully observes the dresses displayed before her, noticing the absence of any that Blanche had personally chosen. Abigail directs her question to Princess Blanche, inquiring about her preferences among the displayed dresses. Blanche, taken aback, responds with a nervous smile, expressing her vague liking for all the options. Abigail acknowledges her response, but inwardly, she doubts Blanche's sincerity. She glances around, suspecting that the dresses Blanche truly favors might be hidden within the boxes nearby. Abigail opens a box and discovers a dress, causing Jeremy to react with surprise and nervousness. She then requests Clara's assistance in retrieving another dress from the box. As they unveil the dresses, Abigail asks Princess Blanche for her opinion, to which Blanche responds with astonishment, agreeing that the dresses are indeed beautiful. Abigail reflects on the dresses Blanche seemed to like, unable to recall exactly which ones they were. Blanche appears nervous and fidgets, but when Abigail looks at her, she smiles, causing Abigail to feel overwhelmed by her adorableness. Despite her emotions, Abigail composes herself and decides to have all the dresses tailored to Blanche's size, intending to purchase them all in one installment. Jeremy feels a pang of jealousy and clears his throat. He expresses concern about ordering all the dresses within the princess's budget. Abigail reassures him, stating that she will personally cover the expenses using her own funds, eliminating any potential issues. Despite Jeremy's annoyance, Abigail remains confident, meeting his gaze with determination in her eyes. Blanche hesitantly grasps Abigail's dress, visibly uneasy. Abigail, noticing Blanche's discomfort, inquires if everything is all right. Blanche expresses her concern, indicating that she doesn't want Abigail to spend money on dresses for her, fearing it might affect Abigail's own wardrobe choices. With a reassuring smile, Abigail kneels beside Blanche, assuring her that she already has plenty of clothes and doesn't intend to acquire more. Despite Abigail's reassurance, Blanche still appears unsure. Abigail considers for a moment before making a request. Blanche, visibly excited, assures Abigail that she's willing to do anything. Abigail leans in and whispers into Blanche's ear, asking her to wear her favorite dress when it arrives and to come show her how it looks. Blanche reacts with disbelief, her expression adorable. Abigail confirms that it's indeed all she wants. Admiring Blanche's cuteness, Abigail thinks it's a pity she won't be able to take pictures. Abigail prepares to leave but pauses suddenly, realizing she almost forgot something. With a slight hesitation, she turns back and explains to Blanche that she wanted to give her a pair of shoes, which was the main reason for her visit. Blanche expresses surprise, noting that Abigail has already bought her many dresses. Abigail insists that she wanted to see Blanche in the new shoes as well and asks her to promise to show her later. Blanche responds with deference, addressing Abigail as Your Majesty. Abigail then takes her leave, saying goodbye politely. Abigail's heartbeat quickens as she reflects on her recent intervention. She marvels at her own boldness, feeling a surge of nerves afterward. Concerned, she wonders if she appeared rude and frets about making new enemies, even entertaining the thought of another assassination attempt. Despite these worries, she brushes them off, finding solace in the fact that she succeeded in bringing a smile to Blanche's face. Just as Abigail ponders Blanche's unusual lack of fear, she notices Blanche hurrying toward her. Blanche's excitement is palpable as she addresses Abigail. Startled by Blanche's sudden approach, Abigail nervously questions her. Blanche, now feeling embarrassed by her own enthusiasm, explains that she remembered Abigail's wish to see her in the shoes. She then glances at Abigail, awaiting her reaction. Blanche expresses her happiness with a cheerful giggle, thanking Abigail for the gift. Abigail, feeling a rush of warmth, reflects on the genuine joy in Blanche's smile. The warmth of the moment evokes images of spring, with its delicate pearl-white flowers in full bloom, filling the air with a sense of renewal and vitality. Just then, Jeremy, appearing frustrated, approaches Blanche to remind her about taking her measurements. Blanche, realizing the urgency, acknowledges the situation and suggests she should leave. She bows respectfully to Abigail before departing. Abigail reflects on Blanche, contemplating the unfamiliar surroundings, and cherishes the warmth of witnessing Blanche's smile for the first time, likening it to receiving a comforting hug. She wonders if Blanche comprehends the depth of her emotions. Clara expresses concern about Abigail's well-being, suggesting calling the doctor. Abigail, in her thoughts, rejects the idea, emphasizing her overwhelming happiness and playfully vowing not to smile anymore. Abigail, frustrated, expresses her wish to personally make a dress for Blanche. She laments the current situation where Blanche would wear anything Abigail gave her, even if it were unappealing. Abigail reflects on Blanche's behavior, questioning why she doesn't throw tantrums like other children her age and emphasizing the acceptability of acting like a baby at her age. Abigail expresses her desire to grow closer to Blanche, even to the point where Blanche can express her dislikes. She giggles at the thought of Blanche looking cute when she's upset, likening her to an angry bunny. Abigail acknowledges that it might be premature to make Blanche a dress, but hints at the possibility in the future. Sabrian notices Abigail spying on Blanche again and reflects on how many days she has been doing it. He questions Abigail's motives and recalls her words asking not to treat Princess Blanche poorly. Sabrian thinks about the inconsistency in Abigail's behavior, finding it strange for her to spy on Blanche despite her previous statement. He wonders if Abigail truly despises Blanche. Sabrian observes from a distance as Blanche finishes her walk, noticing that Queen Abigail is following her. He becomes alarmed when he sees Abigail carrying a box with a creepy smile. Sabrian is shocked and clenches his fists, expressing a sense of realization and concern as he contemplates Abigail's true intentions. Abigail stands outside Blanche's room, peering in and reflects on the past week where she has been observing and listening to the princess. She contemplates the gift she has prepared and considers the right moment to give it to Blanche. Abigail debates whether to wait there and create a chance encounter, contemplating how to approach the situation without coming across as a bully from her school days. Abigail deliberates on what to do and what to say, feeling nervous as she imagines the scenario. She tries to empathize with Blanche, imagining how she would feel if she were in her shoes. Abigail realizes that she wouldn't want to put Blanche in an uncomfortable situation akin to encountering a disliked boss holding a present. She decides it's best to leave the gift outside Blanche's door. Abigail stealthily approaches to leave the gift when suddenly Sabrian calls out, questioning her actions. Startled, Abigail turns to see Sabrian behind her and nervously addresses him as Your Majesty, wondering about his unexpected presence. Abigail greets Sabrian and explains that she was about to deliver a gift for Princess Blanche. Sabrian reacts with surprise, prompting Abigail to clarify that indeed it is a gift. Sabrian then requests to see the gift, to which Abigail hesitantly agrees. As Sabrian opens the gift and finds a doll inside, he questions its nature, and Abigail responds by confirming that it is a stuffed doll. Abigail, in her thoughts, expresses a mixture of annoyance and amusement, playfully suggesting that Sabrian should feel sorry for suspecting her. Despite the inconvenience of having to rewrap the gift, she forgives him for the sake of Princess Blanche and anticipates the adorable sight of Blanche holding the bunny in her arms. Sabrian, filled with doubt, throws the doll onto the floor and draws his sword, leaving Abigail shocked by his actions. Without hesitation, Sabrian slashes the doll with his sword, causing it to tear apart in a fit of rage. Abigail, feeling disheartened, questions Sabrian, wondering what he is doing as he finds nothing inside the doll. Sabrian expresses surprise as he realizes it was just a stuffed toy and he was expecting to find needles inside. Abigail, angered by his actions, reflects that Sabrian doesn't feel the slightest remorse about what he just did. Abigail can't hold back her emotions and starts to cry, contemplating if Sabrian really needed to go this far and doubting her intentions. She had the doll made especially for Blanche. All she wanted was to see her smile. Amidst her tears, Abigail picks up the tattered remains of the doll, seeing a reflection of herself in its broken pieces. Carefully, she collects each bit as if they were as precious as the doll itself. Just then, Blanche arrives, addressing both Sabrian and Abigail. Abigail turns, her eyes teary. Blanche addresses her, and after quickly wiping her tears, Abigail inquires about Blanche's well-being. Blanche notices something amiss, prompting Abigail to feel nervous. Abigail glances briefly at Sabrian and thinks to herself that even if parents don't love each other, they should never fight in front of their children. Abigail, feeling sad, lies, saying she wanted to give the stuffed doll to Blanche, but it wasn't sewn properly and all the stuffing came out. Sabrian is shocked and seeing Abigail's sadness. Blanche also becomes sad. Then, Blanche smiles and reassures Abigail, mentioning that one of her maids is good at sewing, so it's all right. Blanche takes the doll from Abigail and hugs it, expressing her confidence that maid will fix it perfectly. She thanks Abigail for the gift and says she'll treasure it forever. Abigail sniffs and thinks to herself, pondering how such an angel could have been born from what she perceives as a piece of trash. She then apologizes for making a fuss outside the room and mentions she'll be leaving. Blanche responds with an okay. With a heavy heart, Abigail runs away from the scene, tears streaming down her face. She reflects on her behavior, feeling ashamed of herself for acting that way in front of a child. She tells herself to get a hold of herself. Standing near a pillar at a distance, she takes a deep breath. Despite her turmoil, she tries to find solace in the fact that Blanche accepted her gift and even thanked her for it, promising to treasure the doll forever. Sabrian continues to gaze at a piece of fabric, lost in thought. Millard notices his demeanor and inquires about his thoughts. Sabrian brushes it off, claiming it's nothing, then swiftly shifts the conversation, asking if Millard has discovered anything new about the Queen or if there are any rumors circulating. Millard reports that rumors suggest Her Majesty has ceased mistreating the maids and has become considerate towards them. Additionally, she frequently visits Princess Blanche with gifts. Sabrian reacts tensely, questioning the mention of gifts. He ponders about Abigail, noting her unusual behavior and wonders what might be happening. Sabrian asks Millard if he believes the Queen has genuinely changed her ways. Millard expresses skepticism, suggesting that it might be an act to gain favor with others. Sabrian admits he initially shared the same doubt, but wonders if there's more to the situation than meets the eye. The servant informs Sabrian of Lords requesting an audience. Sabrian grants permission, and Duke Stoke greets him, hoping not to interrupt. Sabrian directly inquires about their purpose. Duke Stoke, with a grin, apologizes again and explains they want to discuss the idea of bringing in a second queen. Sabrian's incredulous expression mirrored his internal turmoil. Stoke's words sliced through the air, each one laden with implications. Despite over a year passing since Sabrian wed Her Majesty, the absence of an heir lingered ominously. Whispers of their separate chambers echoed accusations of royal incompetence. Stoke's proposition hung in the air, a tangible reminder of his concern for the kingdom's future. Sabrian's resolve stiffened, his refusal to entertain the notion of another marriage steadfast. Stoke starts recounting his family history, mentioning his late daughter, Queen Miriam, who died during childbirth. He contrasts Miriam with his youngest daughter, Karen, implying she's a more suitable match for Sabrian. Sabrian, visibly angered by Stoke's insinuations, interrupts abruptly, commanding him to stop. Stoke flinches at Sabrian's sudden outburst, and Sabrian warns him sternly, indicating he won't tolerate further discussion on the matter. Stoke clenched his teeth and faced Sabrian, expressing regret for his words. He acknowledged that as he aged, he tended to worry about trivial matters. He requested Sabrian not to be angry, emphasizing that his concerns were sincere. With that, Stoke left Sabrian's office. Sabrian then turned to the man who accompanied Stoke, inquiring if he had something to add. The man acknowledged Sabrian's potential discomfort with Duke Stoke's proposal, but suggested it be considered. He emphasized the importance of producing an heir as one of Sabrian's foremost responsibilities. If Sabrian opposed marrying into the Stoke family, the man proposed exploring potential matches from other noble households. Sabrian interrupted, expressing his reluctance to discuss the matter any further. The man persisted, implying Sabrian's indifference to the absence of a direct heir. He highlighted the potential scenario where Lord Raven might marry and father a son, emphasizing the significance of royal lineage. Nobles, the man implied, prioritize bloodline above all else. The man posed a question, juxtaposing the potential future husband of the princess against Lord Raven's son, who would possess royal lineage. He implied that the nobles would likely prefer Lord Raven's son as their next king due to his royal bloodline. Frustrated, Sabrian expressed his awareness of the situation and vehemently rejected the idea of taking a second wife. He emphasized his commitment to Abigail as his only wife and requested solitude, asking both the man and Miller to leave. Exiting the office together, the man nervously addressed Millard, expressing concern about rumors regarding Sabrian's potential interest in men. Millard promptly dismissed the notion, stating firmly, "No." Alone, Sabrian let out a sigh, questioning why everyone was fixated on reminding him of his duties. Suddenly, a hallucination appeared, a green-eyed girl embracing Sabrian from behind, stating the obvious about his role as king and the expectations for him to be a good ruler. Sabrian jolted, feeling flustered, and hastily stood up from his seat. Sabrian recalls Abigail's words where she expressed that she wouldn't demand him to act as a husband anymore, but urged him to fulfill his duties as a father. This notion strikes Sabrian, as it's the first time he's been relieved of his role as a husband but now faces the challenge of being a father. He acknowledges his shortcomings in that aspect and decides to call it a day, feeling the need for some rest. Sabrian walks toward his room, contemplating a sense of unease. The maids bow to him, expressing hopes for his rest. Sabrian notices that even the maids are behaving unusually. Just when he thinks things can't get stranger, he opens the door to his room and is shocked to find Abigail inside. Abigail is seated on the bed, welcoming Sabrian back. Sabrian thinks it's the strangest sight he'd ever seen. Sabrian yells in anger, expressing his discontent about their sleeping arrangements. Abigail thinks to herself that she anticipated his unhappiness, but finds his reaction even more negative than she expected. Abigail contemplates her plan, determined to enact revenge on Sabrian, whom she feels despises her. She sees her actions as a means to make his life miserable, comparing herself to the Grim Reaper and envisioning Sabrian's suffering like her rabbit torn apart in darkness. She reaffirms her commitment to her plan and urges herself not to back down. Abigail impatiently questions Sabrian's lingering presence, feeling frustrated that he hasn't moved. Sabrian, in turn, expresses disappointment that Abigail hasn't changed and regrets believing her suggestion to use separate rooms. Abigail defends herself, explaining that she proposed the arrangement to dispel Sabrian's suspicions, but he continued to doubt her motives. She feels compelled to confront him directly to prove her innocence, causing Sabrian to flinch in response. Abigail proposes a deal. If Sabrian apologizes for doubting her, she will return to her room as promised. Sabrian hesitates but asks what would happen if he doesn't apologize. Abigail counters by suggesting she would stay and even teases about revealing the lingerie she's wearing underneath her robe, though she assures herself she doesn't intend to actually undress. A few moments ago, Clara reacts in shock. Abigail plans to sleep with His Majesty wearing only a camisole. She insists Abigail wears something more appropriate and hands her lingerie. Abigail blushes upon seeing it, finding it akin to a mere bundle of strings, and questions where Clara acquired it from. Abigail looks at Sabrian, contemplating why he's hesitating. She urges him to stop wasting her time and apologize, knowing well that he doesn't want to proceed with the situation either. Sabrian admits he was mistaken in his assumptions. Abigail reacts with surprise, pondering his belief that she wanted to use the incident as an excuse to share the bed with him again. In her thoughts, she wonders if he sees himself as Prince Charming, considering his royal status as a king. Abigail questions why she would degrade herself to such an extent. She reiterates that she no longer seeks his affection and notes that since he doesn't intend to apologize, she will continue coming there every day until he does. Sabrian then quickly apologizes, prompting Abigail to think that his response was swift. Abigail feels offended, contemplating Sabrian's attitude towards her. She wonders if he views her as a contagious virus. Moving closer to Sabrian, she remarks that his apology sounded forced and half-hearted, suggesting that he try saying it with sincerity. Sabrian, flustered, bows deeply, expressing his sincere apologies for doubting Abigail's intentions and ruining the gift meant for the princess, acknowledging the delay in offering a proper apology. Abigail, also flustered, reacts with surprise at Sabrian's deep bow, wondering if it was necessary. She reflects on his sudden sullen look and speculates if this is his first time apologizing to someone, fearing she might feel guilty. Abigail acknowledges the questionable things she has done in the past and forgives Sabrian. She mentions having someone clean up the mess and apologizes for the trouble before bidding Sabrian good night. She reiterates her stance of no longer seeking his affection or desiring power, expressing her wish for a quiet and peaceful life without drawing attention. Abigail even mentions she wouldn't oppose Sabrian getting another wife and reflects on this decision with some irony. Abigail mentions Lady Karen from the Stoke household as a potential candidate for the next queen before Sabrian expresses frustration, refusing to marry anyone from the Stoke family. Abigail then suggests considering a lady from another noble household, which further agitates Sabrian. Sabrian screams in frustration, vehemently declaring that he will never marry another woman besides Abigail, affirming her as his one and only wife. Abigail, bewildered by Sabrian's sudden change in attitude, ponders over his behavior, particularly his previous disdain towards her. Despite her confusion, she decides to proceed cautiously and acknowledges Sabrian's apology before excusing herself to return to her room. As Abigail walked back to her room, the cool breeze of early spring failed to calm her racing thoughts. Her heart pounded so rapidly that she feared it might burst at any moment. She wondered if the lingering scent of roses still enveloping her body could be the cause of her heightened emotions.